So today I'm going to be talking about tips on getting started with homeschooling high school. And my name is Kendra Price. So I don't know, homeschooling has become mainstream, but when people talk about homeschooling high school, that tends to be a completely different animal. And so now there's this assumption that everyone is gonna that chooses to homeschool will choose to homeschool from elementary to middle school, but then when high school comes, it's like, oh, you're gonna put your kids back in high school for public or public school for high school, right? And that's just not the case. So I made this little meme or this little video short on Instagram that I think is hilarious to my response for when people, the naysayers, doubt that you can homeschool high school. So you can, I'm like, watch me homeschool high school. Um, Let me try to move forward. Okay. So before I get started, I'm just going to share a little bit about myself. My name is Kendra Price, and I have a blog and podcast called A Heart for Homeschool. I haven't been active on it in the last I guess the last year or so, because I've been branching out with gardening and with church activities. And then I'm also a writing coach for Brave Writer, which is a revolutionary way of attacking writing. So check that out. But I still have my blog. I'm still and my podcast, and hoping to kind of revamp it and really focus in on the things that I've learned homeschooling high school. So this is my family. I have my oldest is 20, and she graduated 2 years ago. And then my son, Samuel, he is 12, soon to be 13. My youngest is 11. And my second oldest will be graduating next year. She is 17, soon to be 18. So, guys, just bear with me I'm using Google Slides instead of my fave, which is PowerPoint. So I would query, when did I finally gain confidence that I could successfully homeschool high school? This is my oldest, who like I said, she graduated 2 years ago. She is currently, or a year or so ago, she's in her second semester of her sophomore year at University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And she's a pre-vet major. She's a dual major in animal science and poultry science. Honestly, it's really sad, but I tended to question my ability to homeschool and how things were going to fall out until she graduated, because she was my first. And so there was all this anxiety of, because people would ask, oh, can you do it? And what about this? And what about that? And it's like, there's this pressure on you that people are watching to either see you succeed, to feel like they can homeschool all the way through high school, or to see you fail to confirm, oh, see, you should have put her back in public school, which is a no. I'm a former high school chemistry teacher from public school. And 10 years, like, I started homeschooling back in 2012, 2013, and I've never looked back. My husband is even more like, does not want any parts of his kids in public school. So we have to make this work, and it has worked, and it has been a blessing. Couldn't imagine doing anything else at this point. But the confidence really came once Jacqueline, my oldest, successfully graduated our homeschool. So I am a planner, and I always say, those without a plan to fail. Planning, when it comes to homeschooling high school, in my opinion, is extremely important. So I'm gonna discuss some things that I thought about. Even though you have a plan, your plan will evolve and it'll change and whatnot, but you still need to think about some things. So for example, the biggest thing is that I think when our kids are in elementary and even middle school, we kind of chart their course a little bit more closely unless they're unschooled. But for high school, this is kind of their life, their career, their future. And so really getting them to buy into whatever plans you all set is essential, because if they don't want to do it and they don't buy into and believe in what they're doing, I think that's going to be whether they're success or not, because things that kids are passionate about, when they're ambitious, they're driven, and they see the point of what they're pursuing, that's when they will be successful at it, because they're going to do what it takes to rise to the occasion. And of course, we'll have you there to help them along as well. So when I say charting that course, the first thing is, what path will your homeschooler take? Are they wanting to go to college? For so long, I know, at least for me, it was college was it. There was nothing else. But I think with homeschool and this, the opening up of things and the way that our economy has changed and evolved, college is something that you really have to give strong consideration to based on what your child wants to do, because it is not this end all be all. So college, and I'll talk a little bit more about college in a little bit, but there's college, there's the military. And even with military, I would say you need a plan. Trade and vocational school. The trades are a big deal because you don't have all these student loans. You can get skills like, for example, welders. I know kids that graduated from homeschool, went into welding, they're making $100K, and with trade school experience and no student loans. Or entrepreneurship. There are kids who are gifted in the arts. There are kids who are gifted with things, that passions that they want to begin earning money and learning how to scale up their business from middle school or high school. And for example, coders, there's Google certifications and things. So if they're into coding, for example, really deeply, that's something that they don't necessarily need a degree in, because once they get in college, the textbooks become obsolete because the technology changes so quickly. So these are all things that you want to think about in terms of charting a path for your high schooler, because it's going to dictate a few things. So the question of why is this choosing a path important is what we're going to explore in a second. So in terms of the military and talking about plans, each path that your teen or your child can potentially take will look different slightly from someone maybe pursuing a 4-year degree at an Ivy League, for example, or an entrepreneur. For example, military. How am I going to develop my child if they say that they want a career in the military? Well, there are certain extracurricular activities such as the Civil Air Patrol, Junior ROTC. They have to constantly, throughout being in the military, be able to pass fitness tests. So what type of regimens or sports will they participate in? Maybe they want to be a part of 4-H, where they learn shooting sports. They learn how to shoot rifles and guns. They do archery and those types of things. The police has, like, for example, if they're interested in being a part of the military police, they have the Police Explorers program. So how can I develop my child immediately? Do I plan to enlist after high school? This is a big one, because the military can pay for college, but a lot of kids from homeschool will enlist after high school, but you can go to college. They can pay for you to go to college, right? And then when you go in as an officer. Okay. I'm gonna use Texas things because Texas is where I live and what I'm most familiar with. But in researching, for example, with my daughter, they said with if you want to go into ROTC and have your tuition, your school, and your books paid through the military, that you needed an 18 or 19 on the ACT. Okay. And so those are things that you want to consider at the beginning because they're going to dictate kind of the path that you take once they become seniors. So that is an example of the military. Trade or vocational school. There are a number of programs that can give your children, they can graduate with associate's degrees, they can graduate with certifications that will allow them to immediately begin working. And this is important because sometimes kids are burnt out after school or they just want to start earning money and they need a gap year. And so this is a way for them to be gainfully employed with a certification. They may not be earning 100K, but they're at least earning enough to contribute to save towards maybe living on their own or whatever their plans are. So, for example, I'm a huge 4-H advocate. So I've done a previous talk all about 4-H. You're going to hear me constantly kind of refer to it because it's something that 4-H encompasses a number of beneficial things. So, for example, they have a veterinary assistant technician certification, right? So the kids can earn like 300 hours. They can work with a vet and they can be certified as a veterinary assistant or technician. Now, I didn't know about this when Jacqueline, my oldest, graduated. We got into 4-H around maybe 3 years, and we ended up moving. But she did get into a summer program that was offered at Texas A&M, and that looked good on her resume in terms of trying to get her to college. And I am currently interested in getting the curriculum and getting the certification so that I can teach my kids and other kids to get that certification when they get in high school, if they should want it, working with animals. Another one is coding and robotics. There's a Google certification program. So these are things that you might want to consider with trade and vocational schools. And then the entrepreneurship. Some kids, for example, I'm going to use my children because, again, as examples, and then I will try to stop for questions also. My second oldest was heavy into cake decorating classes, and you'll see her portfolio at the end because when I talk about documentation, and she's taken cake decorating classes. And she has done a number of different cakes for competitions, for family and friends, but she could have that as a business. Now, she didn't want to necessarily, she has said she wants to go to college. So she didn't want to do it as a business. But you never know in the future, we all have our side hustles because the regular 9-to-5 no longer pays a living wage all the time. This is something that she can pursue later. Also, kids are getting into podcasting. There are business and financial management classes. So some kids, for example, in the path, the different paths they can take. A child that wants to go to college may take a lot of academic classes. A child that's has a business and wants to immediately start earning money may not take as many classes or may not take as many rigorous college, like really heavy AP classes or advanced classes. They may take the minimum and they may target certain classes like business classes, things that will help them to develop and enhance their business. So that is why talking with your child and determining what path they want to take is important. And I see you, Alicia, with another 4-H'er here. 4-H is something, like I said, there are so many opportunities there, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to keep moving forward. Now, college. For my two oldest, college is where it's at. They want to go to college. They said that from the beginning. And so there was a lot to kind of consider. Number one, what kind of college do you want to attend? I'm going to touch on this because depending on what type of college that your child wants to go to, they're going to have different requirements. And you as a parent, their freshman year, should identify some colleges and those college course requirements, because that's going to dictate some of what courses that they take in high school. Okay. So does your child want to go to an HBCU, historically Black college and university? Do they want to go to a state college, community college, and then university, or Ivy League? What do they want to major in? How will we finance college? There's a lot of scholarship money out there for like STEM majors, and a lot of money out there for scholarships, period. But depending on what their major is, you want to start thinking about how college is going to be financed, because if at all possible, you want them to go to school for free as much as possible. So my child, when we were planning, she knew that she liked animals. She has a high aptitude for math and science. She calls herself an introvert, and she's an introvert, but she loves animals. We call her the animal whisperer. We have 3 dogs. I have a picture, which I couldn't find, but a picture of her on the side of the house. A bird from somewhere had flown in, someone's pet bird, and she was able to get it down from the roof. She loves chickens. It's just crazy. And so when we first started, she said she knew she wanted to go to college, and she knew that she wanted to do something with animals. And because we are typically in Caucasian spaces, we've always been, that's just the way things have been. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in terms of identity and learning, being a part of a majority experience, we advocated, and she wanted to attend an HBCU. And so from that, it was about creating a narrative. And so the 3 narratives that we wanted to create was an academic development. How has she targeted what she wants to major in? What leadership opportunities has she pursued? And what type of community service opportunities has she participated in? And this is important because if your child is thinking about college and you're trying to, in the future, apply for scholarships, they're not just looking for good grades, okay? Everybody has good grades, but they want to see how has your child been able to distinguish themselves in terms of their passions, in terms of them as a whole person, okay? And so that's my little bit so far about college. Are there any questions so far? I'm so used to like recording and not, having the feedback. So if there's any questions, just stop me or put questions in the chat and I'll try to respond. And if I skip over something, definitely I will have questions, be willing to talk about questions at the end, okay? All right. As I talked about before, creating a narrative. I tell parents this is so important. And I discovered how important it was when it came to scholarship and employment opportunities. Okay. When I say create a narrative, basically you want your child to be able to share their high school experiences with scholarship applications like it's a journey or a story. And you want to be able to craft it to make it unique for them. And when I say scholarships, I'm not just talking about outside scholarships from specific organizations, but the university scholarships, okay? So when it came to creating the narrative, so internships, summer internships shows that your child is serious about their career goals. As Black parents, we actually have an advantage. If you live around any HBCUs, I would find those HBCUs in your state because they typically have summer programs, developmental programs in the summer. Often they can be there free, or they will pay your child to go. Give you an example. Prairie View, because I'm in Texas. Prairie View, my second oldest, she had her cake decorating business. She wrote an essay about wanting in entrepreneurship. She spent a week at Prairie View participating in their entrepreneurial program for their business department. Okay. And they got to go to businesses, they got to hear lectures, they got to participate in group projects. My other daughter, my oldest, was able to go to a STEM Academy program at University UAPB, where she attends now, that summer. And they put them through the grind to get them ready and prepared for college. I know Langston has STEM programs. Prairie View has those programs for business, agriculture. Southern University has programs for science and engineering. So there's a lot of opportunities. And it also, the internships and summer programs exposes them to college life. It exposes them to what's possible with their career, and it helps them also to become critical thinkers because they're working on projects and learning more about their chosen career. Leadership, 4-H again, giving your child not just being a participant in these organizations, let's say 4-H, or let's say a Civil Air Patrol. You want your child to participate in these programs and benefit, but you also want them to be leaders, maybe be the president or the secretary of the club. Those leadership, they specifically ask about those types of things on scholarship applications, but also it shows your child is responsible. They're willing to commit. They're not just a follower, but they're willing to lead. And those leadership opportunities give your child opportunities to grow. Public speaking, how to conduct a meeting. For example, my second oldest with 4-H has done, my oldest hates public speaking, right? She absolutely hates public speaking because she's an introvert. But that was the very thing that I believe landed her full scholarships, okay? Because she went to Toastmasters and she competed. She hates public speaking, but she was able to grow and she was able to show how she overcame that fear. And now she has to present her research, going to conferences. This is an opportunity to travel. When you do research, she has to publicly speak. So opportunities for leadership, opportunities for community service. Community service is a big deal because it shows you're a problem solver, you're a critical thinker, a hard worker, but it also shows that you're not just all about yourself. You're about identifying problems within your community and helping to work to solve them. And that's very rare because a lot of people, everybody wants to jump on things when it's all shiny and glittery, but it shows a different thing when your child sees a problem and is able to work from the ground up. That's how, for example, we've gotten started with this community garden, because there were no community gardens in our area. And my daughter has used us doing this to become a Healthy Texas Youth Ambassador. She applied for Texas 4-H Congress. So there's opportunities both presently and future when you create a narrative. That's very important. Are there any questions? Okay. Now, another reason why choosing the path is important is that your child takes is important is because you need to know from the beginning what type of diploma you're going to issue your child. Meaning you need to know how many credits they need to have, and you need to know what classes you want them to take, and will those classes be considered accepted based on your state. Now, I'm giving you this example from Texas. It's older. You see a QR code in the corner. This is the QR code will take you to a more recent, for those living in Texas, it'll take you to a more recent version of this. But for example, in Texas, a child that's 16 that can graduate, and you can issue them a diploma when they have 22 credits, as long as they've taken these courses, correct? That's the minimum. But if your child wants to go to college, right, they would likely want to go with the 26 credits, okay? And so there's a distinguished, I forget the different name titles for the different diplomas. We issue, as for example, Texas parents, we issue the diplomas, right? But you need to, this is why you need to talk to your child about what they want to do. Because for a child that wants to be an entrepreneur, they may only need 22 credits, right? And it's not you can issue their diploma, they can graduate, they can drive off happily into the sunset. A child that is considering going to college or may want to go to college, I would not graduate them with 22 credits. They would need the 26 credits. Okay. In terms of the learning experience, yes. Someone asked, so are you still curating the learning experience, but according to these diploma requirements? Yes. Here's the thing. Do they have to have English 1 through 4? Yes. Do they have to have algebra 1 and 1, algebra 2, geometry? Yes. But number one, there's a lot of room for different electives, right? So for example, cake decorating, that my child can get credit for that. Gardening, my child can get credit for that. And how you go about doing English 1 or English 4 is up to you. Does that make sense? I will give you this example. Geometry is something that, based on what my kids want to do, my 2 daughters, based on what they want to do, and what they're never going to see geometry again. The only reason why they need geometry is to take the ACT, that portion of geometry, and not, and do reasonably well on it. So in our homeschool, Khan Academy is free. You do geometry that way. Now, algebra 1, algebra 2, we have emphasized. Pre-calculus is important. My oldest had to take calculus in college. So math, being in a STEM discipline, math is important. Geometry, not so much. I chose to focus in on algebra 1 and algebra 2 with more formalized courses and let them do geometry through Khan Academy, okay? In terms of English 1 through 4, now, I'm gonna get to that. There's another slide. I'm gonna address the curation kind of how you go about the classes throughout, okay? Because that's a very good question and an important one. So that leads me to my next slide. In-house or outsource. From the jump, again, elementary, and I would even say middle school for me, for my two youngest at least, has been more hands-on. I'm sitting at the table, I'm teaching them, choosing curriculum. We're doing a lot more together. Now, my two oldest children, my daughters, they're more, they were at a place by the 8th grade, and my younger two may be there. They could gradually be more self-directed learners, okay? By the time they got to high school, recognizing I need to focus more of my attention on my younger two, I had to outsource a lot of the major courses. And it turned out to be a good thing, because when we started to look into visiting colleges, they were okay with homeschool, but they kept asking, well, did you teach this course, or did you teach that course? And like, for example, I'm a chemistry major, right? So yes, I have a degree in chemistry. I taught them chemistry, fine. But knowing that they had taken AP biology and that they had taken other courses from other people and through academies and whatnot actually helped them, because it was like the grades that they received from other people is confirming that these are not inflated grades, right? And it kind of also helped the professors to know, I guess, they really are capable and blah, 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 okay? But homeschooling, of course, many of you know, doesn't mean you have to teach every class. I wouldn't suggest it for high school, okay? Now, this is a really busy slide here. I want you to take a look at all of these. Some of these you may have heard of, these online programs. I mentioned Khan Academy. I am a writing coach for Brave Writer, and I love it. Awesome program. American High School is, I want to say, the CEO is a Black woman. Then you have some of the more mainstream academies, Apologia, BJU Press, Time for Learning, Mia Academy, Homeschool Legal Defense Association Online Academy, Liberty University. These are options that you have, both free. These are ways that you can choose to outsource your children's education, certain aspects of it, to other places, but they're not all created equal. Y'all, these marketing, I'm not going to name which particular company, but you really want to research this. Questions like, is there live instruction and access to a dedicated teacher? Is there a textbook that they can actually write and work in if your child is a highly visual learner? Is there a textbook for the class that they will have access to all the time? Will my team receive feedback on what they submit? For math and science, are there practice problems and are grades assigned? These are important questions, because when I was researching what I wanted to put my two oldest in, one company, they charge you all this money, but there's not even a dedicated teacher. The textbook is an online ebook that they can thumb through, but they only have access to it for like 18 months. Well, that wasn't going to work. If they had questions, it was going to go to some nebulous hub for somebody to teach. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that does not fit my child's needs at all. I don't want them sitting online on an ebook, reading an ebook, teaching themselves, and I'm paying $500. You crazy, okay? Then there are some other ones that are listed as good, but they're good for middle school and elementary, but as you get older, they're not as rigorous, right? And then there are other ones that they have a live instructor, they provide grades, they operate in Canvas, which is an LMS, a learning management system. They're rigorous. Some of the courses are pre-recorded. Others of them, they have the live instruction that changes the price. Please do your research on these when looking at how you want to outsource them. Some of the classes, for example, I'll give you an example, Brave Writer. The courses are asynchronous, meaning that they happen at various times throughout the year. It's not just a semester. Now they are starting to offer some semester-long courses, but the beauty of Brave Writer, you have there's no live class to attend, but your child submits their writing and the writing coach gives them feedback within 24 hours or so, right? And it's in line. So that may work for what your child's needs are, versus having to come in and sit down at a specific time and be front and center in front of a screen, okay? So those are about in terms of outsourcing. But now I will say this. I know that there's another course on this, but I'm going to touch on this. There are some courses that none of the things I just showed you, companies, I would not let anyone, I would be very choosy about history, and I would not let any of the mainstream companies teach my child history, and definitely not American history. I've interviewed with some companies to teach science, and they had a problem with the fact that I had that I recommended the 1619 project, even though I'm teaching chemistry, which has nothing to do with that. But I'm just saying, so for example, for us in my home, history was something that we did in-house, and there's a ton of resources. Warp and Weft History. This is an online history class with live classes. I think, I forget the name of the lady. I think it's Nelson, but she does an excellent job. Woke Homeschooling is excellent, and they have online classes. A Blessed Heritage has Black history curriculum. The 1619 Project totally changed. I mean, my oldest daughter, that was life-changing for her. And especially just learning about aspects of history in ways that American history that she had not considered. And then there's Black History 365, which is a textbook. Oh, awesome. And Howard Zinn. So, let me go back. I'm sorry. Howard Zinn, if you have never, I would encourage you to buy this book. I was like, how do I teach my younger kids start teaching them about his American history, but giving them true history? Oh my goodness, this is mind-blowing for adults. It has been wonderful. So there are so many resources out there for teaching history, American history, Black history, world history. And I'm saying it, my children have been in HSLDA Academy, Apologia. These are the evangelical mainstream courses. When they touch on history, yes. So I would just, because I feel very passionate, protect your children, give them the tools. Trust me, we've been battling. Like, I love it because I'm confrontational. So I'm like, I welcome these assignments so we can respond with educating some folks, okay? But definitely make sure that you're also looking at how they teach history, okay? And I wouldn't recommend any of those other places with history. All right, moving on from that, what about accelerated courses? So let's say your child wants to go to college or whatnot. Advanced placement, CLEP, and dual credit. I'm going to say this, and this also may be controversial too. There's a big drive for dual credit, and I understand wholeheartedly because I regret. So my second oldest and my oldest have taken advanced placement courses. So advanced placement, let me just start there. Advanced placement are high school courses geared toward passing exams that are issued by the College Board. And if they get a 3 to a 5, then they receive college credit and they don't have to take those classes in college. I put them in advanced placement courses because of the rigor and the content. And I didn't care about the test because I'm not test averse, but I wanted them to have the information. Then there's CLEP. CLEP are assessive exams that basically test you over specific subjects. And if you pass the test, you get college credit. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are where you should be in the class, but if you pass the test and your child does not want to focus on American government, for example, in college, then they want to take the CLEP test and CLEP out of it, and they're done. Dual credit is huge right now. It's huge because your child can receive high school credit, they can receive college credit, and they can even get their associate degree, from a 2-year college. I was personally kind of iffy on dual credit and whatnot initially, because those things go like I was concerned about whether my children were ready for college level courses and the responsibility of it, and what if they don't do well. But my 2 oldest, who I'm talking about, my 17-year-old, they were driven. I regret now not having put my oldest in dual credit, because what happens is when they get to college, they're taking courses that are not relevant to their degree. Okay. And so it's like, yes, while she's on full scholarship, she could be using the time to take other courses that she needs. So that being said, my second oldest is going to be taking, in her senior year, she's going to be taking some dual credit courses because it's easier to get it out of the way and allow her to get the credit for that and move on when she gets to college. I was told also when visiting colleges, if you are a STEM major, science, technology, engineering, math, that sometimes the dual credit can work against you with those courses because you still have to take them again, and because you don't know if the rigor and all of that fits in with the degree plan, and because it can cause your child to be taking, like if you're in STEM, it can cause your child to be taking all science classes, and math classes, which could be a really rough suit. Whereas some of those filler classes, it can help to improve and buffer their grade. So those are just some of the thoughts that I will leave you with when it comes to accelerated classes. I do like advanced placement classes. My daughter they've taken AP Anatomy and Physiology, AP English, which will grow them in writing leaps and bounds. They've taken, I think that's it. But I do like advanced placement, and I do see dual credit as a viable option, especially when it comes to saving money. The only problem I would say with dual credit for Texas residents, some programs, depending on where you live, the community college will pay or discount the courses, but where we live, you have to pay for those courses. So you're going to be paying $1,000 or so per class. Okay. But if your child is taking online classes from certain academies, you're already paying that. So why not take a college course and pay it and be done? Then oh boy. So okay. So again, you also want to give thought to developing your team beyond academics. This is the heart of homeschool, even to me when they're in high school, and that is life skills. What life skills do you want them to get? Do you want them to learn how to cook, how to wash clothes, how to garden and raise their own food, how to can vegetables and fruits, how to sew? My kids have done a lot of those things, right? But even more so, homeschooling is, in my opinion, yes, I want, like, for example, hobbies also. First oldest learned to play piano and was really good. My second oldest plays the guitar. She actually was able to teach guitar lessons and be paid for that. And she's teaching my other daughter how to play the guitar. So some of the hobbies and things are important just for their development and growth as a well-rounded individual. But I can say honestly that instilling our values and character in my children has been the greatest gift that homeschooling has provided. If I give them all these academics, I give them all of this stuff, but I don't prepare them for eternity. If I don't instill in them character and values, then it's all for naught. And the reason why this is important is because when my child went to college, she had to navigate people coming from different backgrounds and how to handle that and how to manage her time and not be pulled away because she has friends and different things. And the other reason why I will say that this is important is because social people always ask, what about socialization? It's important for Black people, especially to think about Black homeschoolers, especially to think about socialization. It's something that we've at times had some struggles with. Like I said, we've always been in predominantly Caucasian spaces, and being in the Deep South, you know that there have been some issues with that. And so being strategic and intentional and doing research and finding programs to get them in and trying to teach them about how to deal with different people and maintain your own identity and confidence and whatnot. Those are the hallmarks of homeschooling as far as it goes, and it's an important part as they get older. Now, the last thing, and then I'll take questions and whatnot, is tracking high school. So this is important. I've always seen kind of people make a big deal about transcripts online, and I don't know why that is, but I will tell you that there are at least 4 ways that I have tracked my children's progress, and that is transcripts, record books. If you're familiar, I'll talk about this with 4-H and show you what I'm talking about, resumes, and portfolios and pictures. In terms of transcripts, there are templates at HSLDA. I would not pay anyone to make a transcript for me. It's basically just documenting the courses that you're taking. You may want to write class descriptions of what your child is learning. Course descriptions, if you take classes online, they should provide a course description in the syllabi. But essentially, this was my oldest daughter's transcript, and you can see gardening, creative writing, biblical worldview. These are courses, Black history, driver's ed, personal finance. These are courses that she was able to have credit for that went towards her degree. Her diploma. So how you get there. Now, I did state which courses that she took that were taken as outsourced, like HSLDA Academy and whatnot. But I think those are starred. So I did not teach them, or I didn't purchase curriculum that she did self-paced. So these are examples. She did piano. These are things. So there are a lot of electives and ways that you can give your child credit for the things that they learn and accomplish in high school. Here again with the resume. So for my oldest daughter, she did work briefly, and then we moved at Little Caesars Pizza. But her volunteer experiences, the awards and leadership experiences that she received in high school, these are all things that went on her high school resume, okay, and allowed her to be able to sell herself. When I say sell herself, sell that narrative that she has different experiences and that she's well-rounded. Over here, I was telling you about, and all of this I created in Canva. So another plug for Canva. But for my entrepreneurs, if there's, like, for instance, my second oldest really loves cake decorating. And so I have documented the different cakes that she has made over time, so that if let's say she wanted to go into culinary school or something, she would have documentation to show what she's done and the classes that she's taken in terms of cake decorating in order to pursue that. And then last but not least, the record book. So if you're in, oh, okay, awesome. Oh, I guess I can show the cakes again. So we have a baker, another fellow baker in the class. Yeah, so these are some cakes that my daughter has done with cake decorating. She's done more since then. Oh boy. Oh my goodness. It's a GIF file, so it'll go through again. But yes, Jasmine, my second oldest, has definitely taken to cake decorating. She enjoys it and she's meticulous. She's done competitions with 4-H, and placed and done well with it. Now she does it for fun. She determined that she didn't want to do it, as you know, she likes to do it as a hobby, but that if she had to do it like every day, that would take the fun out of it. So, but every year she makes a cake for her siblings. For those of you who are not familiar, now this is the one time I'm going to sell 4-H, and that is with the record book. 4-H by far has the best way of documenting your child's year to year, documenting your child's high school journey with pictures and a narrative. In that record book, they start off, like, for example, they choose the theme. So for example, one year, this particular book she did was focused on food challenge and nutrition, but she has since gone on to she's going to be writing about her leadership opportunities. But just writing a narrative over the year about the things that she did towards those goals, and the classes she's taken, the leadership opportunities that she has had, and then the different projects that she's done, whether it be attending practices for Food Challenge, the competitions for it, all of that gets documented. Even her community service and non-4-H activities. So there's a question, what do we do with the record books? So if you're in 4-H, and you have 3 years of record books, you can apply for their scholarships, and we're talking $5,000 to $10,000 towards college. But in terms of documenting, when you get ready to apply for scholarships, often the kids will have to write essays. They will have to answer questions about, what did I do in terms of leadership? What did I do in terms of community service? How have I grown? What obstacles did I overcome? These are questions that they will ask. If you have a record book where your child has already been documenting that, then it'll be cut and paste. Or they will easily be able to discuss it. They will also have interviews for scholarships. that they will, because they've already written about it, they will be able to discuss it easily. So in the last few minutes, I'm just going to ask, are there any other questions? Anything else? Okay. So, okay. I'm glad this information has been helpful. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to be notified of future videos. Also, don't forget to check out my website, www.aheartforhomeschool.com.